this meeting to order. First thing we should do is the Pledge of Allegiance. Carl?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone's here except Steve. The agenda, no changes. Is there a motion and a second to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Public comment. People from the public, is there anybody here that wants to talk to us?
Can I set this up? Because I'm aware of two people.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. You can leave if you want to.
I told them both that's part of the price of being here, that they have to stay for the entire meeting.
Oh, there you go.
What? I didn't hear what I said.
Spent a lot of time in this room.
We gave you time.
You did,
Now
that's right.
you have to stay and watch this.
He's kidding. No,
I'm kidding. Get out of here.
Okay, yeah.
The minutes of the December 9th meeting were in your package. We need a motion and a second.
So moved for approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Communications, donations.
Okay, I'll start with that. We have some very nice donations. Once again, Neville Chrysler Dodge Jeep donated $1,500 to the FFA. If you may recall, there was the invitation to test drive, and they would donate money for all those who test drove their vehicles. Came to $1,500, so good for the FFA and for Neville Chrysler Dodge and Jeep. Delta Soccer Club donated $200 to the school district. Janet K. Arney and Matthew G. Yankee, $1,500 to WLC Library and Media. That, you may recall, is an annual donation. They've been doing that for a number of years, and very much appreciated. And I saw in the, you may have seen in the letter that there's a possibility for matching funds as well, another $1,500 if we do some things, and we're working on that. And then the donations for students and families summary, you can see that in your packet as well. Some very nice donations. I think it said that they were able to provide for 33 families and 74 students from all those who were kind enough to donate. The list of the donations and donors was included in the packet. So we would ask for one motion to approve those donations with appreciation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. School visits.
I had one. Who else did?
I did.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. I visited the WLC, as I'd like to say, the West Wing, because I went over on the west side only. Well, I was there yesterday in the morning, and I don't know that anybody here I bumped into there. John was out yesterday, so I didn't see John. But I went to a number of classrooms, just poked my nose in a little bit and to see what was up. I stopped in Marine Parents' classroom. They had just finished testing for reading, which I found out they do 3 times now a year instead of twice. And they just finished the January one. And they were telling me a little bit about how they do that. And then I went to Molly DeRay's class, and they were writing letters to pen pals. She has a friend who's a teacher at the same grade level in Platteville. And so they write letters back and forth. But what was interesting is the students in Waupaca wrote a letter telling about themselves, like how tall they are, color of hair, and then the students in Platteville drew a picture of what they thought they looked like. Yeah, there were some interesting pictures, but it was fun. I mean, the kids were having a good time with it, so they were working on their letters to respond to that. I went into Linda Easland's class. They were working with Chromebooks on math and typing. And she told me that they do that quite a bit now because all the tests, and I'm not sure quite what all the tests are, in the future are going to have to be typed, keyboarding, so that they're learning how to do that as much as possible, because even at that grade level, they're going to have to do all of it online. So that was interesting. Then I went into Val Sharansky's class. She was doing a reading in a circle of students. It was wonderful to listen to. Of course, being an old English teacher, it's always fun to listen to people read. And the thing that I can't help but feel is still so important is to listen to students. I don't care what age, it doesn't make a bit of difference, to verbalize aloud, to listen to people read aloud. And she had a wonderful system. They sat around and they were reading the story all together. I mean, they all had the same book, on the same page, following along. And she had this little container, and she would pull out at random the name of a student, okay, Justin, your turn, and then Justin would read a paragraph and then pull out another. So everybody had to get in on the act, if you will. And she helped anybody who struggled a little with a word, and then they went over some of the ideas in the words. But I know for myself, even as a senior high school teacher, there are still a lot of students who struggle with words in terms of pronunciation and whatnot, surprisingly, because they don't hear it aloud very often. You could read to yourself many times, but if you don't hear it aloud, sometimes you're not quite sure, the pronunciation. So that was really fun to listen to them. They were having a good time, and so it was really nice. Then I stopped in and saw Mary Felt for a few minutes down in the gym. They were doing some jump roping in Fayette, just chatted with her a little bit. And then I ended up talking to Tom Reif, who was also health at the middle school in Fayette, or at WLC, happened to be there, and we chatted a little bit and gave me a little background on what he was up to. So all in all, it was fun. I kind of had a whirlwind of a lot of people, and enjoyed it.
Good.
Everything was good.
Thank you.
Good.
Anyone else?
Yes, I went to middle school today, and I visited 5 classrooms. I went to Mr. Kempford's science class. It was incredible. The kids were learning about electricity and voltage and currents and resistance and Ohm's law and.
From him?
Excuse me?
From him?
Yeah.
No,
I
I'm
bet he
kidding.
knows more than you.
I'm
do.
kidding.
I would be too funny about that, Mr. Chamberlain.
I know, I know.
Quiz right here.
I'm kidding. because
There you
I'm-
go.
Do you have a quiz?
Every time I go into his class, I learn an awful lot.
It was, whoa. So anyway, the kids, it was their second day of the lesson, and they were getting it. They weren't real excited, but he said, come Friday, they had a lab where he actually has a static ball or something, where they actually get to see resistance and get shocks and things like that. So he said that's always a little more interesting when he does the hands-on. Today, they were just doing formulas. I went into Tricia Duman's class, and they were working on nomenclature for plants and animals in the animal kingdom, and learning how genus and species and how all of that works, and going over Latin terminology, and it was pretty interesting. They were learning the anatomy of a plant, and they had dyed carnations and put all different food dye in and turned carnations all sorts of fun colors. Mr. Harms was teaching a 5th grade math class about decimals and fractions and multiplying by 100s and thousands and 10,000s, and how it's not just adding zeros anymore like we learned. It's actually the logic behind it. So that was interesting. And then Mrs. Polowitsky was doing a social studies class. But more importantly, she had on the board a whole breakdown of MAPS testing and how to read the scores. So the children had just had a session in what their scores meant, what a 6th grade score would look like, what a 7th grade score should look like, what an 8th grade score should look like, progress that they can make in their scores. So she went through a whole presentation on that. Having said that, they said that they thought the MAPS tests were difficult, and they were tired, and they're doing a lot of it. But they also told me that there's O's all over, big red O's through the hallways. Zeros, excuse me, to show that there's no talking in the hallways now because of the testing that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, the one thing that I got asked every class I went to was about snow days. And last week, on Wednesday, and being cold, and so I explained our bus situation and how we need to keep our young people safe, and, if there's not enough buses, that it becomes a safety factor, and their safety is always our number one interest. They asked about why we don't start later, have a delayed start, and I explained that that's more of an inconvenience, and 2 hours doesn't really make a whole lot of difference in wind chill factors. And so they listened very respectfully, and I assured them that come June, they'll be very happy they didn't have a snow day. So that was that. It's a good visit.
I'd like to congratulate the 3 people that, or well, 2 of the people that are on the, in the spring election, Sandy, Betty, myself. There were only 3 of us, and so it'll be an easy election. Tough, finally. Recognition, Dave?
Yes. Number of people and groups to recognize this month. The All-State Award for Monica Reeves and her cast and crew received at the 2014 State Theater Festival. There's a list of the National Honor Society newly elected members in your packet, and along with that is an explanation of what the Honor Society is, how students get elected to it, and what it stands for. So congratulations to those students and the teachers who took the time to read the applications and make these selections. January 12th to 16th is Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week. I put the poster up right in front of the projector there, so you can see it from that way. It's probably the first time we've recognized crossing guards. It's a unique situation with Waupaca that we contract with the police department to hire the crossing guards. They're not really employees of ours, they're employees of the city, and we pay part of the cost of the services for crossing guards. There are 2 of them. They do a great service, and if anybody has a chance, they'll stop by and tell them thank you when they're out there. They're out there in all kinds of weather. They are on my emergency contact list. If school's canceled, they get notice of it as well. But we do appreciate the work they do. Then fall sports recognition. Mr. Eggebrecht put a list of all the students and coaches who were recognized for their fall sports accomplishments. Congratulations to those student athletes and coaches. Results of the middle school geography bee included in your packet. Congratulations to those students. And then Terry Stoltz, once again, we want to recognize him for his Christmas Cards to Veterans program. Mr. Becker, did you want to say a couple comments about that?
This is the 8th year that he's done it. 15,000 cards have been delivered to veterans during those 18 years. We've got several letters of thank you from different nursing homes and hospitals, veterans nursing homes and hospitals, and in particular, I think what touched many of us was a phone call that was made. Shane Dornfeld, our Dean of Students, was the person that received that phone call, but it was a veteran who had been hospitalized and received one of the cards during the time he was hospitalized. It really made a difference for that veteran, and he thanked us profusely for what we did. So we know that we're making an impact. We feel that this is a great experience for our students to be involved in, and we're actually having an impact on our veterans of Wisconsin.
Dave, maybe a couple of plugs here. First of all, just to piggyback on that, you know, as a classroom teacher who had many of those the kids write those cards, I remember the first year we did it. It was a bit of a struggle because we weren't quite sure where they were going and how the kids didn't quite know how to write to somebody they didn't know. But over the course of time, I was amazed at how many students wrote some messages in those cards that were lovely. I mean, they were just wonderfully sincere messages that were impromptu. And you know, all the terrible things we hear about, oh, kids say the stupidest, dumbest thing. In reality, I would say 95, 98% of them are really well put together. It's sincere, not that always the words aren't always spelled perfect, but the sincerity is unbelievable with those kids. They really believe that they're touching somebody and write some really nice things. And the second plug that I'd like to just make here goes back to the first one on Monica Reeves. some of the same students that she had that won those awards are going to be in her upcoming play, and I think it's coming up in February. I don't know if our meeting is before or after that, but it's the weekend of Valentine's Day. The play is going to be put on. It's called Chemical Bonding, and many of the same students are in it, and it's a kind of a comedy, tragi-comedy sort of thing, and a very, very interesting piece and real fun. I think everybody will enjoy it. So just a little plug on that. Some of the same students that won the state awards will be acting in that.
And if I can add, it's going to be in a very interesting venue. It's called Thrust Theater, and the audience is going to be positioned on stage on 3 sides of the performers. So the performance will be happening right amongst you as you're seated on the stage. So it'll be interesting. It should be a great crowd experience also.
So our meeting is February 10th.
Oh, so it's actually after. It's right after.
So we'll get a reminder then.
Yeah, we'll get a reminder.
February 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Peschel?
Yes.
I asked Terry Stoltz to write a couple things down.
Oh, good.
So he wrote down that the cards for this project are purchased every year prior to when they're sent out. So he was buying them, the end of December and January. That way he can take advantage of Christmas specials and save the district money. Always keeping you guys in mind. I usually get them from Kmart here in town, Walmart, and Goodwill. I also get donations of small amount of cards that just appear on my desk or in my mailbags at the high school. Some of the cards have been really touching, just a few. For example, one student wrote that his grandfather flew the B-17s during World War II and described what he knew about it. One young lady wrote that her fiance was in Afghanistan while she was writing the card. And one student wrote all about his great-grandfather's story about when he witnessed the bomb on Pearl Harbor. I think the best one that Terry has ever seen was a regular Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, but then the student wrote, who knows, maybe you'll get lucky under the mistletoe for Christmas. Because I would be remiss if I did not say how much my wife has helped me with this undertaking. Yvonne helps me get the cards, sorting, packing them for the teachers in the different schools, and then the final proofreading of them before they're sent out. So I know that the teachers proofread them, of our homerooms, but then they go back to Terry and he and his wife proofread them again. And for the last 4 years, he's given like 400 extra cards to me, and then I get FFA members or just agri-science students that enjoy doing this, and they'll come in for a study hall, like what you said, Mr. Fair, because they know they're making an impact. They'll come in and write some cards.
Yeah, it's a great program.
Very nice. Congratulations to all. Can move into dates. Again, the next meeting will be February 10th. There's also, sometime in February, the WSB Legal and Human Resources Seminar coming up in Stevens Point. Mr. Fair indicated he'd like to go. You should receive something in the mail. Can you just hold that up?
Yeah. I don't know if everybody
May
can
have
see
all-
one. Is this a flyer that looks like this?
It's the end of February, so if someone would like to go to that, let me know. Open enrollment limits, this is something that we need to do by state statute every year. We need to state what our limits are in our classrooms. We have not had limits in the past, and I don't anticipate us needing limits next year as well. So there is a motion on your desk related to this. So just stating that Waupaca does not intend to limit open enrollment spaces for the regular education students for the 2015-16 school year. So if someone would like to make that motion, or if you have any questions.
I'll make a motion that we not limit the open enrollment spaces for our regular education for the 15-16 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Waupaca County Charter School Agreement for 2014 through 19. It's a 5-year agreement. Yes, five-year agreement. That's the length of our charter school agreement allowed in the statute. While we've had this charter school for a long time, it was time to renew that agreement. It had been approved under the previous description of it and language the first time we went through, but this time DPI said, well, we've got some concerns with your agreement. We've been working with DPI to get that agreement to work. We finally have the version that will be accepted. And other than terminology, the major change in the agreement is that we have added parents to the board of the charter school. The governing board in the past were the superintendents from the schools, Department of Health and Human Services, a CISA 5 representative. Now we've added 2 parents to that as required by statute. So it may be parents of Waupaca kids, maybe parents of Manawa, Waupaca, we don't know yet. But we're looking for volunteers from the parents at this point. So that's the major change. DPI has agreed that it's acceptable now, so we're asking each of the school districts to approve that retroactive to beginning of this school year.
Is there a number of parents that they're requesting? Or-
2, we put in the agreement that there'll be 2 parents.
2.
We thought one would have been acceptable, but we thought any one parent would feel more comfortable if there were another parent, so we agreed to add 2.
You just haven't found them yet?
We haven't decided who it's going to be yet, or haven't done, we're just looking for volunteers now. Part of the problem, that the reason we didn't before is because we meet about every other month as a board, and we talk about the individual students in that school and their family situations and what's going on. I'd be reluctant to have that discussion in front of parents of other kids in that school. So we have to modify a little bit of how we operate and what that board does at that level when we have parents on there, just for confidentiality reasons. So that was one of probably the longer discussions we had in coming to terms with this.
They have to be parents of students currently enrolled
They
in
don't
the
have to
charter
be,
school?
no. If you think about charter schools, how they generally come to be, this one came to be because I think it was Dennis Dornfeld.
Yeah.
Came to me and said, you know, we need to do something different with these kids who are being adjudicated out of home placement. And the 2 of us sat down and hammered out this agreement for the charter school many years ago. As opposed to most charter schools, a group of parents or a business get together and say, come to the school districts and say, we would like to propose this charter school and get board approval. That's how a typical one gets started, by parents. And this one had a different start, but we're bringing it around now to including the elements of a true charter school. And the school I think is working very well since we've added the day treatment component to it, getting funding from Medicaid to fund the day treatment part. I think it's a real model of excellence for that student, that particular student.
Good.
So you need a motion?
Please.
I
Yes.
move that we approve the Waupaca County Charter School Agreement for 2014 through 2019.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then
How long is that document?
about 8 or 9 pages. It's quite lengthy because it has to be by stat. It has to include certain things.
Has to be 9 pages long.
No, if it has to include the things that make it 9 pages long. Next item is policy that I think it was Kirsten who contacted me about the policy of closing schools. I looked at it and realized that we need to make an update on the part about notification. As I think I've explained to you, we are using the emergency notification function of Infinite Campus now to let all staff members, parents, students know that when school is canceled. Now, we did a test of it and it works for me. I have an emergency notification, it includes about 30 people. It's what I call my cabinet, plus the crossing guards, and plus Eric Halverson, emergency management for the county, the police station, all those things are on my list. And once I send that out, the principals have their own list of their students, families, and staff that they send their list out. Eventually, we'll get to the point where we can push one button, I can send it out to everybody with just one notification. But I wanted to include that in here, that we're, rather than putting an announcement on the auto attendance, which is what we used to do, we're now going to use the emergency notification of Infinite Campus. I know that John told me that he has all of his students, families, and staff on his list, and it has worked well. Ben, I think you told me you're there as well. I don't know if high school.
We have all of our staff on.
Okay.
But not all of the families.
Yeah. Families have to sign up.
They do.
We can't just go in and put them in. They have to sign up. So it's a
Correct.
matter of contacting families and getting them to do that. It works a little bit better at elementary, middle school, high school. But it's a pretty neat program that will allow us to, in any kind of an emergency, make immediate contact with families.
I had a parent ask me why some of the teachers knew before everyone else did, but as you described, there's like a tiered situation, and apparently a teacher or a friend of a teacher or somebody put it on Facebook that it was closed before.
I did that
Oh, you did that? Oh, okay.
on the middle school Facebook page.
Oh,
It gained us 120 extra likes in 3 days.
Good job.
And it was seen by 4,500 people,
very good.
so.
Well, as you know, we had a real problem with Channel 7.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Tuesday. Channel 7 pushed the wrong button. Nobody
No.
contacted them, they just pushed the wrong button on their system.
They tried to push Wavino and they hit Waupaca instead.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Who caught it?
I did. Facebook again.
Facebook caught
Uh,
Way
There
to
you
go,
go,
Ben.
social media.
People kept saying, you know, are you closed? No, we're open. And then someone said, Channel 7, WSAW says you're closed. So I contacted Dr. Pesher right away and said, are we closed? He said, no, we're open. So, well, the station says.
Actually,
we're-
what he said was, why didn't you tell me you were closed? You tell me everybody else.
Did I miss something?
So I contacted Mr. Becker. First, I tried to contact the station directly, and of course, it's after hours, they don't answer their phones. Mr. Becker is the contact for that station. So he got ahold of Jeff Taylor, you remember him a long time ago. And they have a, you call it RFS feed, is that?
RSS.
RSS feed. So a parent can sign up with Channel 7 and get a text message similar to our system if school is canceled Waupaca. So Mr. Egerbrecht's at a hockey match and there's a high school game going on, and all of a sudden the students are cheering because school is canceled. They got this feed from Channel 7. And they can send that feed out, but Mr. Becker asked him, well, can you send out a feed that says
No,
that
we
was a
were wrong.
mistake?
Yeah.
He says, no, we can't do that. We only know how to send out that it's canceled.
It's all
So,
pre-programmed, all they have to do is push a button. If you ask them to do more than pushing a button, they can't do it.
right.
Out of curiosity, what was the attendance rate on Wednesday?
Attendance, now I did ask this, there were about 200 out on Wednesday from the Learning Center, and I think about the same number at the high school.
Yeah, about 200 were out at the high school.
Is that high?
Yeah, well, out of a total of 690, I think we had. So, you know, it's pushing a third of our students were out.
Normally, we're about 75.
Pardon
Say
me?
that again?
Normally, we're about 75 that are out.
Yeah, with 200, you take out 75 little or so for illness. I don't know that the Channel 7 announcement affected us that much. There were about 20 kids elementary, I think, who said that they thought it was canceled. But the rest of the parents just said, we're choosing to keep our kids home. And they always have that option to do that. What's interesting, though, is if you look at the temperatures, Monday was the coldest day at the airport. Wednesday was a little bit better, and Thursday was no different than Wednesday, maybe 1 degree different. But come Thursday, we had all those kids back in school.
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are just perception.
You can only clean your room
Well, I think it's a
once.
perception when all the other area districts closed. that
That's the big thing,
Yeah.
once that, then it must be
Everywhere around
bad.
us
And-
closed.
Right.
18% absent, 3% absent, and the temperature is effectively the same.
Parents have the right to keep their kids home,
Mhm.
and we've always supported that. I always say, we try to keep the schools open for those kids who can't be at home and need a place to go. If we can get them there, we're gonna stay open.
Is there a determining number?
There's no one number.
Okay.
I shared that with Kirsten, who asked that question too. It becomes, what is that number, and when, is it based on a forecast? Because the forecast on the nights previous of both those Mondays and Wednesdays were a lot worse than the actual happened to be.
Yeah.
So if you base it on a forecast, you could miss that way as well. And you base it on a forecast at 5 p.m. the day before, or 4 a.m. the next day. And as some districts, when I talked to superintendents on Friday, there were neighboring school districts that had very different temperatures. You know, it varies. It's not consistent across us through Waupaca or us through Wild Rose. It's very different. It's very different from one end of our district to another.
We're usually a
It
little
can be.
warmer than other towns around it.
We're different,
Everyone knows.
yes, right.
It's because we have all the lakes
Yeah.
The wake up there?
that are frozen.
So anyway, that changes policy to allow, or it says that we will use Infinite Campus for notification.
And that goes to us also.
It does now. We had some problem, if I can take just a few minutes to, when staff signed up, and I think this is what happened. When staff signed up, you can check your box. You want your work number notified, you want your cell phone notified, you want your home phone notified, and you want an email, and you want a text. You can do all that. But what happens if you answer we if you answer your cell phone, it's not gonna leave you a text because you got that message. If you don't answer
It
your
gives
cell
you a
phone,
message.
it'll leave you a message and then probably followed up with a text. You weren't checked, no board members were checked for text the first time, because when I started asking around, nobody got a text, so I had Sandy Deere go back in and check your box for getting text. So now you should the next time. But what happened the one night is Mr. Agrick's responsible for going into the auto attendant at the high school and putting the announcement on. But he couldn't get through to the high school phone because we assumed all the calls were going out from Infinite Campus to all of the
Oh.
offices, homes, cell phones, et cetera, and the lines were tied up. That made sense, but it made us think, boy, that's good. Can be reluctant to put all of those on one number. If I send out to every parent, every staff member, it's gonna use the office phones. Turns out it doesn't use the district phones. It uses a cloud somewhere. So there are no phone numbers tied up. So it begs the question, why couldn't Mr. Eggebrecht get
Right.
through? We think the cloud was calling back to these teachers who had checked their classroom phone as a notification. So it was the cloud calling in that tied up the phone system, not us calling out. So we went in and asked teachers to uncheck that box, because, first of all, it doesn't work at school because it won't go to an extension. So all the phone numbers, and when it doesn't,
So it just went to the
it
office?
just went to the office, so it's getting a busy signal for every person that continues calling and
Yeah.
calling.
Nice.
In addition to that, there's the, anyway, we're trying to get through those things, but we believe that most people are being notified and that it's working one way or another.
Well, I got a call, but it didn't tell me what it was about. It
That's
just said.
right.
it
You
just
missed a
said-
call or.
Yeah, well, the first time I didn't pick it up because I didn't know what it was. And then the second time, I picked it up and it just said something about you will get a message or, I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't tell you what it said, but it didn't say school's closed. It
Right.
said
That happened
some other.
to some people, and it worked
Canned message.
itself out the second time, so we'll try that. What I was gonna say before was if you don't have an answering machine at home, it will continue to call your house at least 4 times if you don't answer. And that, and if you do, it will recognize it was answered by an answering machine. I can get a report then that shows who was called, how it was received. at the end of the day.
So Dave, getting back to the policy, do we have to vote on this
If
policy?
you would, please, just vote.
Just to make, for the changes?
Yes.
Let's see, I'll make a motion that we update policy code 722.4 as it pertains to emergency school closing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Board monitoring.
Just one more comment on the snow day. Again, I'd extend my appreciation to Lee and his bus drivers for getting us through those days. And your mechanic as well. Came in on Sunday and started all the buses on Sunday to make sure they're running and make sure that we can do what we need to do.
And St. Mary Magdalene besides.
Pardon me?
And St. Mary Magdalene besides.
Oh,
Our bus
oh,
didn't
really?
start. We had to rent a bus from you.
Oh, no.
Thanks, Lee.
That brings us to board monitoring. This is a very important one. I've asked Ms. Hare to give a brief presentation and invited her to invite teachers to come and talk about it as well. You heard an introduction to educator effectiveness about a year ago. You saw a tape or a PowerPoint from the DPI. It's been implemented. We're working very hard on it. It's rewarding when it works. There's some frustration with our Teachscape, the software that the state is using. Again, when it all works and when we're through the process, it's very rewarding. The time that it takes, and they're going to talk about that a little bit, can be enough to break the back of this program. And the jury's still out as far as I'm concerned as to whether this is the right way to go or not. We don't have an option. We have to do it. But I think that, I'm just afraid it's going to fall under its own weight over time. I don't want to sound that negative because there are some good things about it, and actually the teachers are going to talk about that a little bit as well. Ms. Hare?
Okay. Yep, it's been a learning year. I was trying to think how to even talk about it without using all the millions of acronyms. So Teachscape, as he said, is the software that holds it all, but it's really based on a framework written by Charlotte Danielson on what good teaching really is. So, and the idea is to get it really unbiased and really evidence-based, look at what good teaching is and how we can work toward that. So this is her framework, Charlotte Danielson. States are required either to, districts are required either to use this framework or there's another one by a guy named Strong. But a lot, I would say probably most districts use the Danielson. So within this framework, you can see there's 4 domains and then components within each. When evaluators are trained, this is a 3-day training to be trained in this framework. And then there's a test that takes, how long does it take, you guys? 6 hours. 6 hours to take this test. And it's not an easy test.
4 hours to 8 hours on record.
And what you do is watch videos of examples of teaching and rate them on these components and then match which component to which thing the teacher did. Hours and hours, and you have to pass this test before you can be evaluated. And once you can do that, then your district comes up with a plan, and you've got that shared in your packet, our plan, on which teachers will be up for evaluation and what year. We're on a 3-year cycle. Unless they're new, then they're every year.
So, excuse me, so
Yep.
does who gets trained these 3 days and then takes the test?
The administrators or anyone who will evaluate teachers.
Oh, okay. So the evaluators. Thank you.
So then when you have your plan of your district on who's up for evaluation when, that gets punched into Teachscape, and so the administrators are able to log on and start the hours and hours of stuff you have to do on there. Every teacher has to write a student learning outcomes. There are some good things. Student learning outcomes are based on what they want this, looking at data, where the student started, what they want the data to look like at the end. Then each teacher also has to write a PPG, what they will learn, professional practice goal. Okay, so the SLO and the PPG together make the EEP, which is the Educator Evaluation Plan. So that's part of it. The other part of it is the teachers being observed by the observer. And we write down, we go in there, first there's a pre-conference. Then we go in and watch them and write down every single thing exactly that they said or did, and everything the students did without putting any bias at all in. And that comes through our training of no bias, just exactly the observation the way it is. Then we go in for about a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours after that, matching everything they said and did with those components in the system. Then we have a post-evaluation and talk about it. And then we do that 3 more times this year and 2 more within the next 2 years. So by the end of the gathering, oh, and then I forgot, teachers have to upload artifacts with evidence that meet all of those components within those 3 years. So by the end of that 3-year cycle, if they're up on their summer year, they will have evidence loaded that they can meet all those components at a proficiency level of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So in 4, according to Charlotte, is a place you visit. Hardly anyone lives in 4, because that's over and above. So proficient is the level 3 teacher. So at the end of the year, now this hasn't started yet, this is our first year, so at the end of this year, observers will let the DPI know their final scores for their teachers on their evaluation year. And it hasn't been disclosed exactly what the DPI will do with that yet, but that's the plan. And it's up to districts how they want to use that internally. And you can see on our little guideline we wrote that there's no correlation to your employment status as such with that right now.
How many evaluators do we have?
Each of the principals, Maureen is certified, and we are also sending our coaches through training so they know, so our coaches
You want
are
to
our
talk about
middlemen.
the coaches, explain the
Yep, Wendy,
coaches.
okay. Wendy's here to represent the coaches. Our district has 6 coaches. They are funded through a grant through the DPI to help districts to be like the middle person between the teachers and the administrators. So they know the framework, they know good teaching. They're freed up sometimes to really meet with each teacher to work on their SLO, their PPG, and their artifacts. So it's a good position to have, and they've been a lot of support to the teachers, and they're highly trained. So they could also take that test to be evaluators. We wouldn't have them serve in that capacity, but
So to answer Betty's question, which is a really good one and part of what I was talking about, we have a limited number of principals to deal with all of the teachers that we have. Even though the coaches are trained to be evaluators, they are not evaluators. We wanted them to know what a teacher's going to go through when they get evaluated, so we trained them. But if you think about Mr. Erspalmer and all the teachers he's going to have to do, that's why we're going with Ms. Marcon to help a little bit on that. But it's very, very time consuming.
How can a principal do all this
Yeah.
plus do their work?
no, and then we're observed also, so we have to do the same process only for ourselves, so uploading all those artifacts for all the principal components, so that's.
And then I do the
kicker on top of
evaluation
it.
of the administrators.
Has anyone added up the hours that this,
We have,
seriously?
well, yeah.
Are there enough
But-
hours in a day
but
or a week, month?
honestly, from where this started with the DPI, the time that they were expecting from the beginning to where they are now has been reduced significantly, but not enough. But, and I say that just to indicate what unrealistic expectations you had to begin with, about the amount of time that we had to do these things.
Rhonda, what's the window that the teachers have to accomplish what you're talking about here? Each and every year, or is it over every 3 years? How?
Every 3 years, and then each year.
Okay, let's stop right there. Every 3 years, meaning once in a 3-year span? Once in 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless they're new, then it's every year. This is a calendar of what they do at each time of the year. So, I guess the months aren't written on here, but it starts in August.
When you say new, it's new to the district.
New to the
You could be a
district.
20-year veteran
Yes.
teacher coming new to
Correct.
this district,
And we
and you're
clarify
considered
that.
a new teacher.
And then you do it each year for how many years? 3 years?
4.
3 years for a teacher new to the district.
3 years.
So August is over on this side, and this is what happens at each time during the year with the EEP. But in addition, they're being observed 1 long observation and 3 mini observations in their summer year.
So how much time does it take out of their teaching day?
Well,
To
I'll
do
let
these
a
things.
teacher tell you that.
I mean, it sounds like it's a
But-
big process.
But this is the year
And
we
that's not
also
what we're
started.
paying, that's not what they're supposed to be doing.
This
They're-
is the year the state
they're
came
supposed to
out
be
with all
teaching.
these state tests too that we had to learn about, and everything was in 1 year. But I try to look at the positive, and then the other principals can jump in. There are some good things that came out of it, are just the real laser focus on data with the teachers, really move those kids off. Validation for teachers to see that, hey, I am doing these things that good teachers do, and this is the evidence. There's no bias in the administration. Everybody is writing exactly what they see. What other good things? Oh, it makes us actually get in the classroom. If you don't keep up with it, you're gonna get way too far behind. So there's delegations of some of the other jobs so that we can actually get in the classroom and focus on the instruction.
I want to talk a little bit about the part the kids play in this too, because in order for us to get that data, we have to put them through testing
Yeah.
numerous times, beginning of the year, end of the year, so we can look at progress from between those 2 points. So that's the map testing that you're looking at.
I just, wasn't it 3 times a year?
3 times, yeah.
That's what she
We're-
told me, they had
Yes.
this
We're
year.
doing it three.
Have to because of this
That is
mid-year
correct.
check on your
Right,
SLO.
she just got done doing one the day I was there, so this is January, so it's the middle too.
And we haven't even gotten a smarter balanced assessment yet.
Right, that's what she told me, which is coming
The
up.
Badger exam, you
I'm
mean. They
sorry.
changed the name
It's
again.
now called the Badger exam, it used to be called smarter
Gotcha.
balanced
So
assessment.
is this SLO,
Student learning objectives.
outcomes, a teacher has to write one of those for each of their students?
No.
Well, no, they write one, for example, at Chain, you can base it on your principal's school learning outcome. So at Chain, our whole school's working on vocabulary because that was our low point. So then the teachers in groups could write from their grade level standpoint. First grade students will gain this many points on their vocabulary. They could do it in a group that way.
Okay.
And that's really an advantage to this program that we didn't have before, speaking as a teacher, because you pinpoint, like you say, you laser in on, or if you will, certain things that you're deficient, vocabulary. Maybe next year you're gonna laser in on reading comprehension, I don't know, I'm only guessing here. And then everybody kind of gets on board with it. That's a good thing. All the other stuff that kind of goes with it, you have to kind of wade through, but sometimes when you look at the overall, that should make some significant changes in terms of word usage and vocabulary.
But a teacher, an elementary teacher that's teaching every subject to her students, there's gonna be several SLOs then? Because you
No.
might have one goal in math and one in science
You
and,
pick one.
oh, you pick one, okay.
Now, clarify, we've got one that they align with the school goal and then one of their own.
This year, they're only required to have one.
Okay,
They cut
the
that
school
down.
goal.
And the same for middle school and high school?
So at high school, Carl and I oversee different departments. I oversee the English department, he oversees the math department. So his teachers have been encouraged to have a math-related SLO goal. My teachers have been encouraged to have a language or English-related SLO goal. And you know, at the high school level, then we're talking, some of the teachers I oversee are the career technical education department. So, you know, for some of them, having a literacy or English-based goal doesn't make as much sense as having a math one. You know, Terry Stoltz measures in micrometers things that are turned on metal lathes. So he's going to have a math-related goal instead. So we've been a little bit flexible, and I think, you know, the thing that we've talked about a lot of positives. Obviously, the negatives pop to mind also, but we recognize that the teachers, along with us, are under a great deal of stress regarding this. And we're doing our best to give them an opportunity to get on top of this. We've let them know that we are doing this. It's not something that's going to get thrown away, but we're going to work with our staffs to get to where we need to be. An example of that is that the DPI is requiring all teachers to do a mid-year training. It's a web-based training. It's called Deep Dive Module 4. And we knew that that training was going to take teachers a couple of hours to do. So Carl and I have donated, we usually have 2 staff meetings a month, and for December and January we've donated our 2nd staff meeting of the month to the teachers to be able to do their deep dive training. So we've tried to do some things to make it more palatable. As Rhonda said, teachers have been just snowed under with initiatives this year, and we're doing our best to work our way through it.
Are we testing more and using classroom teaching?
Yes.
We are not at the middle school, other than adding the Badger test. That will take more than we did more WKCE before. This test will probably take longer than our WKCE that we did. Otherwise, we have been testing, you know, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year for most of our students, because we want to know what those deficiencies are. And the easiest way to figure out what those deficiencies are is to look at norm-based tests like the MAP test and Enos Web testing to see what they're lacking in. You know, I think some of the good things about all of this that we're doing, you know, we're getting that data, and the conversations we're having with teachers.
But you're getting data, but what about the kids? They're not learning what they used to then, apparently.
The tests take, the MAP test, they take a reading and a math. It's 3 hours out of a week, and then 3 more hours out of a week, and 3 more. So 9 hours of testing out of the year for MAP testing.
And then those are the only tests they have.
No.
Then they have Ames web testing, which takes half an hour total, 3 times a year.
Okay.
And then kids who are in interventions take more of those Ames web testing, those little tests that take between 3 minutes for reading tests or 10 minutes for math tests. And they do those every couple weeks. It's a
Isn't there
progress
prep?
monitor.
Isn't there prep for those tests though? I mean,
They
you don't explain
just-
the tests and.
Those tests,
Tell them the answer.
the Ames web
No.
is a simple progress monitoring, so they get instruction and they take the test. It just can tell what their gains are being made over the last couple weeks. The Ames web, you know, as you heard, or the MAP testing, you know, Betty went in and saw Mary Polubitsky talking to the kids about what do the numbers mean, and how does that impact, you know, where do they want to be. You know, those are things that the kids know it's important. The teachers care more this year than they have in the past because their SLOs are linked to the student outcomes. So there's more of a push to expect the kids to do better, and asking the kids to do their best. And I think looking a little bit more closely at how they're taking the test. Whereas in the past, some of the teachers would be like, all right, you're done, good. And they'd take the data and they'd figure out what they can do with it and they'd move on. Now they care more about it because they have to pinpoint what are your deficiencies, what can I do to help you, and they want to make sure that the kids are doing their best on those tests to know really what those deficiencies are.
Today in that class, they were like setting goals for themselves. So the kids had numbers and they were realistically setting a goal for themselves as to where they wanted to be. So it was really an eye-opener.
Did they do it based on where they were the last time?
Yep, and what the standards were for across the state. You know, she showed the median for the state and what the average was and where they were and what a 6th grade level looked like, what a 7th grade level, what an 8th grade level, and this is the target we should shoot for.
And they know what they did
The
the last
whole
time?
board was filled with numbers and goals and categories and ranges. That's what I was looking for. So, and the kids could all decipher it. In fact, she had them explain to me what all of that meant.
You know, when I was in Ms. Easland's class and they were doing these guys, you know, little computers, they were all working on math, and I asked her, I said, well, are they doing the same problem? She said, no, it's kind of like the math. They all are at different stages. You know, they do a problem or a question or whatever, and then it moves on to another one. And I said, well, does that Chromebook then keep tabs of all of that, so they come back tomorrow, they can call it? She said, yeah, and in fact, she said, I get a readout. She showed me a readout, had every student and which ones that they, you know, had little, it was color-coded, which ones they got correct, which ones that they didn't get correct. So she can come to, you know, Johnny Smith and say, well, I can see here yesterday, you only got 2 out of 5 right here or something. So she has all of that gets spit out right away, sort of like was mentioned, Ben mentioned that you can get the deficiencies almost immediately. They're right there, and then to say, no, you're struggling here with this part of it, let's go back and see what we can do.
I asked the children that today if they liked, I said, are these written or computer? They said computer. I said, do you get the results immediately? And a lot of the kids were like, yeah. And some of the kids were like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
It just is the way it's being
yeah,
done.
and they
Again,
took it seriously. They were.
yeah.
So is there any thought in looking at the data, focusing on the things that the students are getting right rather than the deficiencies and really trying to capitalize on the strengths?
We do look at that with the SLO. You look at what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses.
Yeah.
So that's part of writing the SLO. And so the MAP testing breaks it down into 4 areas for math. And, you know, they can see, boy, in number and operations, you they're negative, but geometry, they're, 5 points higher than the national average in that section. So we're doing something very, very good with our geometry in that, for those kids, but the number and operations is something we need to work on.
And you can write a tiered SLO, it's called a tiered SLO, that my students that were below will make this much gain, they have to be accelerated, but my high students will still also gain even this much. So you could write your SLO to reach every single student in your class.
Can we hear from the others?
Yeah. Wendy's here as a representative of the coaches, and Mary Kay was still for the teachers.
Okay, and I have a fun little gadget I'm just gonna show you, and hopefully it'll work, because of course technology is one of our challenges here. So this is called a swivel, and I'm wearing a little remote control device here that will allow this to follow me all over the room. I can also do some fun things like push a button, and then it should start going 360. This is just a tool that we've been able to use in classrooms for teachers, and this is something that allows them to watch their teaching, and it would allow an evaluator to be able to see what they're doing, or be able to be shared. This is just something that, again, goes with the, I believe goes with the
We got
grant.
through a grant from DPI to help with educator effectiveness, to improve teachers to be able to see themselves, and also to upload it as an artifact of evidence.
I might have gone to sleep. Okay, so.
What do you see in there?
I'm trying to show you, yeah, I'm
Yourself.
trying to show you.
So it's operating as a camera right now, that's what's happening. That the iPad's camera is
So
following her.
it's taking a picture of
And
her.
then it just
Yep,
walks
a
around.
video.
Video.
Video, let me just, I'll see if I can get it going here
That's
real
cool.
quick.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's just a modern version of it, and it keeps it stored in the computer.
Boy, I remember the days when I was teaching and we had a camera set up in the back.
Yeah.
Someone there to move it around and try
Yeah.
to follow you.
Kinda like that.
Yeah, like that, yeah.
That's right.
We're laughing with you, not at you.
Well, let me show you, I mean, it'll just kind of, let's see if I can get this to follow me. I had it all set up, and now, of course, it's
Went to sleep.
always the way it is, right?
So do you offer those to teachers voluntarily, or is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some people are very, very intimidated by that, and some people are fine with it. So actually what I'll do is, it's not recording right now, but I'll just kind of, if you guys wanna maybe take a peek at it, that's kind of what you'll see. And then, like I said, it can do different things that will allow you to videotape your whole class. So it's kind of a neat gadget, and we have about, I think we're gonna be ending up with about 5 in the district, along with the iPads that go with it and things like that. But like I said, that's just a little thing I wanted to show you. What I really wanna say though is that part of the value, I know we're having a lot of good discussion about this, but really as a coach, the value that this has, the educator effectiveness has been, is that I think for a lot of people, collaboration is one of the biggest things. So for me as a coach, it's really allowed me to get around to different people and to try to help people and to build relationships with them throughout our, well, both the Learning Center and the chain is where I kind of have tried to work. Scott Van Ness is the other coach, and he works with, we kind of divvied up the staff to work with different people. So that's been really nice to be able to kind of develop relationships with people and help them to try to understand the system. It's also the focus on data we kind of talked about, and what I've found with that is that teachers are, it just has really renewed my thought that teachers really are so innovative and so creative, because it's really forced people to think of new ways to use data, that kind of thing, to not only look at the data, but think of new ways they can use it. So, you know, you're talking about folks like your tech, educational technology people, or FIED or ART, which might have difficulty with trying to relate the school SLO to their own teaching SLO, and I'm telling you, they have found ways to do it. And it's really kind of neat to for me, as a person that gets around to a lot of different teachers, to be able to see that. It's really kind of neat. Now, the challenges, we've kind of talked a little bit about those. The learning curve, the technology learning curve, and just learning the system is huge, I think, everywhere from bottom up and, top down. It's the number of hours is significant. And that has been difficulty. Teachscape has been difficult to work with. We just keep we just learn things new every day, learning how to get around different problems and doing problem solving that way. And for me, I think, I was just trying to think of what is my biggest role as far as with teachers, and that would be, I think, just helping people look at data and know what they're looking at, and trying to understand, and trying to have, to put that data together to make a goal that can be achievable for their students. So that seems to me like a lot of what I've been doing, is trying to help people that way. So.
We think having coaches like Ms. Van Bush takes the intimidation factor out of it. A teacher can feel free to go to her and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, can you help me?
Right.
And as opposed to going to a principal and saying, I don't know what's going on.
Right, and because there's a few more of us, we're, maybe somewhat a little bit more accessible, and I agree with you that has really taken the intimidation factor out.
Plus you get ideas as you move around different
Oh,
people,
absolutely.
and you share
That's what I'm
those.
saying. It's really been, even though it's a little overwhelming, I can definitely see some good points as well. The testing, that's a good discussion to have too sometime with different things, but, because that data collection is a huge piece of this, so. But.
I want to talk just briefly about the advantage of having that snow day from last year added on to this year. We used that time, a lot of it for this purpose, so that teachers were actually given time to do some things, as opposed to many districts say, this is, and DPI comes out clearly, this is not a school responsibility to do this. This is individual teacher's responsibility. And many districts just say, you figure it out, if we're not going to give you the time to do it. And I hope people appreciate that we, as Ms. Harris said, we've really given time, invested in staff time to do this stuff.
Is this being incorporated in universities and colleges and teacher training?
Not that I know of. Maybe teacher training.
Interviewing potential candidates for teachers, it seems like the university is just starting this year with freshmen. And so there's gonna be a gap, I think, of us training teachers coming in for the next couple of years. But then after that, the university will be online. But I think they're working more with that first year student this year, at least talking to the candidates and what the.
But that's their perception. People coming to us, they're saying, yeah, I think the freshmen are getting that, but we haven't really talked to the freshmen who are supposed to be getting that.
Right.
I did speak with a student teacher that'll be with us this spring who was desperate to get in at this point in time, because she said that if she had to wait until next year, she had to pay an extra $400 to subscribe to the service that her university is using in order to evaluate. And that service sounded very much like Teachscape to me, where they have to load in evidence, they have to videotape themselves, all those kind of things. So it sounds like some institutes of higher learning are implementing things that are parallel to what our teachers are doing. But it's not been unified by any means.
I was also just going to say quickly too that, when you think of people, teaching staff now that have to use PDPs to professional, right, PDPs, to be able to, they seem to have a little bit of an advantage because it's not like to have evidence and artifacts, that's not nearly as intimidating to those folks than it is to a person like me who, got in before that, so I just take my 6 credits. But it seems to me like if you're a younger teacher, that might be a little helpful because of just having to have that experience with the PDPs.
How are school districts monitored as to doing this?
We don't know for sure. We think DPI is going to ask us to send scores of every teacher who gets evaluated over a 3-year period. And they have, of course, records of licensed teachers, and they will want to see a score for every teacher over a 3-year period. Because it comes down to one number. That's what we get out of this. At the end of the day, you've got a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that number gets reported.
Is there any correlation to the program that was the master teacher program that people could apply to?
Are you thinking of National Board?
Probably so, yes.
There is not. There's not.
That program is sort of gone by the wayside, I think, in reality. It still exists, but I don't think there's much help about it.
And this is a Wisconsin program.
Yes. But Teachscape is not, that's part of the problem. It has every other state's system in there, and we have to pick and find the things that are required in Wisconsin.
So all
Just-
states are coming up with a version of this?
Just a little historical, if you recall, No Child Left Behind, every school district was gonna be 100% students proficient in advanced by probably this year, next, 14 or 15. And our state said, we can't do that, we're gonna have to write a waiver. So in order to get a waiver, they had to include this piece of it in the waiver. So technically, federal government's not saying we're requiring this, but they would require No Child Left Behind. And so we say we can't do that, we'd all be failing schools. So DPI came up with this plan that's being shared across other states. And that's how we got to this point.
Did you want to hear from Mary Kay?
Please.
I'm Mary Kay Rister. I teach second grade at the Jane School. And I told teachers in the teachers' lounge, that I was coming to the school board meeting, please give me some of your thoughts about this program. And I was pleasantly surprised that I know there were negative things, and a lot of them revolve around the website, the technical aspect of it, that we're having issues with that. But some of the benefits that they did see were that the first thing you had to do was you had to do a self-reflection of all of those Danielson components. So you had to kind of grade yourself. And what I found out from that personally is that, I normally would look at what do I need to work on. But here I was able to find that there are some things that, I could even give myself 3s and 4s in. And so that's something that in all of my teaching career, I've never really looked at. Oh, look, I'm doing something really well. So that was, a nice benefit. It's also, Ben had said, teachers have to analyze the data. At the end of every year, we would look at how our students did on standardized tests, and we'd say, well, that was last year, and that would be kind of the end of it. But now it's so tied into your teaching that you really have to analyze that data and look at, what are your students' weak in, but then you had mentioned what are they strong in, and play off of that and adapt your teaching and your goals according to that. So my SLO is 85% of my students will reach their targeted growth using the MAP score by the end of the year. So second graders take the MAP test in the fall. They're going to take it next week, and then they'll take it at the end of the school year. So next week, I'll be able to see, are they heading towards that targeted growth? So I have a very bright group this year. I have 8 students who are reading at the 4th and 5th grade level. So my PPG, my personal goal, will be to bring those students, get resources from, Wendy, whoever I can, Rhonda, whoever will give me resources to help me bring those students, have them continue their growth. So the students that score high also are being, we're not forgetting about those. The other thing about this program is it has brought Wendy in to come and help us out with different problems that we might have. And Rhonda has been really helpful too. And, I can't speak for all the other principals, but saying, kind of like talking them down. Don't get too upset about this. This is gonna work. Try and do this, try and do that. Don't reach for something that you can't attain. Now, as far as the time commitment, that in-service day was really important to be able to have a whole day to work on that.
However, everything we worked on did not save the whole day. So that's what I mean by the frustration of this website that we're working with. The other thing, the in-service time, anytime we've had in-service time, that's been really valuable because we're meeting and collaborating. And let's say our whole staff is meeting in the computer lab. There's some young teachers that just know how to use that technology. And so I'm stuck on something, I'm not sure where I need to go. They're right there to help you. You have other people who maybe are sharing the same goal, who will tell you, you know, these are the methods I'm using, this is the data that I'm collecting, these are the artifacts that I'm using. So that in-service time from the teacher's standpoint is really important. So any of those early dismissal days, we need those. We need those to work on that. And also the district waived our 7.5 hours of professional development so that we could use that. Am I correct? Okay, good.
You could use it, it wasn't waived, you could use it for yourself.
Right, right. We could use it for that.
You
Now
don't
as
get
far
paid
as,
for it then, right?
what?
You don't get paid for it then?
You do get
You get paid.
Okay. I'm kidding.
All right. Personal time. Okay. I tried to do some of this reflection. I've been observed already, and I had to write fill out lots of different things in this website. And I tried to work on it at school. I have 45 minutes during the day when my students go somewhere else. That's not enough time. I get distracted or something else happens. I can't work on it during the day. It's just that simple. So then you come in on the weekends, you come in on vacations. January 1st I came in and I thought, I'll give myself 4 hours. I am really gonna slam this stuff out. I am gonna do a great job. So I'm typing away, and then I pressed save and exit. Okay, so now I'm going to the next thing, save and exit. Going on. And then I wanted to go back and see if, you know, maybe I should add this. Guess what? It didn't save. You were supposed to press add first, then save and exit. So, you know, it's those kinds of things that, you know, even the in-service or talking to teachers, you've got to say, make sure you press that add, or, you know, you need those kinds of things that really don't help out too much. But the teacher's kind of view of it is every year we're given something else to do. So it's just another thing at this point. Yes, it's a big time commitment, but it's just another thing. If you love teaching and want to teach, this is what you do. So that's my view.
Shouldn't have to do this large class.
Seen a few years where.
Well, it's a lot different than when I had Clarence Riddle 100 years ago, when I had my first evaluation, and he said to me, after he came into my room, he said, "Oh, you did a good job. And by the way, are you going to the baseball game tonight?" And we talked baseball the rest of the time. That was the extent of the evaluation.
When Rhonda came to my observation after an hour, she said, "No, it's been an hour." It was like an hour and 15 minutes, and she could tell I was just going on and on. She's typing away. I mean, because they have to record absolutely everything you say so that they can identify all those components of those domains. So it is really hard for
Is that where
principals.
that camera comes in?
Can be, yeah.
Rather
Could
than
be.
typing it all,
Yeah.
you could videotape and then go back and revisit that, or?
Well, you'd
You'd
still have to type it, because you have to tag it onto each of the components.
Can you get a voice?
Like, time out, catch up.
Computer, recording, my goodness. So Pat, when you go to the convention next week,
Yes.
you might be able, there might be a section on.
There are, I already looked at, I don't know, you know, if I get to, but there's a lot of them on just this topic, evaluation techniques and all that.
Uh-huh.
That'll be good to hear.
Yeah, interesting.
It's like the rest of the world, though. It's all about data.
It's all about data.
If you talk about healthcare and all the other things that are going on, it's about collecting data and showing improvement by the numbers. And it's unfortunate. I want to talk about your question before about, okay, if we're teaching this, what are we not teaching? If we're testing, what are we not being?
Sounds like we're
teaching?
testing a lot.
I think when we've been tested and compared against other countries and they try to show us as not doing very well, they've determined other countries teach narrow and teach in depth in a narrow area where the United States taught real broad. So I think Common Core and some of these other things are bringing us back to this narrow. So there are things that are not getting taught. But if we're going to compete or be competitive with other countries' numbers, that's what we need to do.
Didn't the numbers also show that our country was very high in terms of creativity?
Nobody cares about that. Not nobody, we do, yes.
Yeah, we care.
We do, we think it's very important, but when we get measured against another country, it doesn't say, well, but the United States is more creative. We have to go searching for that data and say, okay, how many more patents have come out of the United States and how many, how can we measure the creativity? But people who want to criticize United States schools will look at the data in the core curriculum area and say, that's why there's evidence that we're failing. And we need to counter that by saying, here's evidence that we're doing well.
But we're also
But we're
testing
losing.
all the students with the disabilities.
Right. But we're losing that argument with voucher schools and charter schools and all that other stuff.
So we're teaching to the tests.
No. We're teaching what kids need to know to be successful on the test.
Same thing.
Well, it depends on how you view what's being taught,
No, what-
Steve. Nobody complains that driver's license tests, that people teach to teach driver's ed, so that people can pass a driver's test, because they value the skills that are in the driver's test. So if we really value what is being taught and what the students are learning, then the tests are just an instrument.
That's a good point.
For us.
Well, on top of the tests, we don't know what the tests are in most cases. They're kept under lock and key until which time. It's not like the individual classroom teacher test. It's some other person's test. And we don't know it until the day of. So you're hoping that things you're working on they'll get there and do well on, but you don't know that.
I read an article recently, though, that evaluated, it was from the workforce, and it said that they asked CEOs and managers of different departments, and they said that the young people that are coming out of our colleges are, while maybe their scores aren't as high as other countries or nations, our young people are coming out with the ability to be collaborative and to be able to work in projects, to be able to work in groups, to be able to problem solve and creative thinking in that aspect, as opposed to other countries. They're so individually focused on personal goals that they've lost sight of the fact that in the real world, a lot of what we do is collaborative and, working together on projects. So it was really giving accolades to the education system in the United States, saying that, we still haven't lost that.
One comment about what you were saying. I'm struck by your comment that you discovered as part of the process, oh, look, I'm doing something really well. And that really is a gift, and to the extent that teachers in our schools are able to help give that gift to students as well, so that they can see that, I think that's a tremendous thing, I think. And I'm really glad that you found that to be true for yourself.
Thank you very much. And thank you for putting a positive spin on it. Not a spin, positive outlook. There are, sometimes I set things up to be negative, and I didn't mean to do that. I think it's positive as well. There are very good things that are going to come from that process of getting there, though it's just tough.
What a year for everybody, Infinite Campus.
And by the way, this Teachscape problem is not our problem. That's a national program, that it's not like we're losing the data in Waupaca or we don't have things set up correctly. It's somebody else's problem that we're having to deal with.
Let's see, it's 6:45, consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was just a roll call, by the way.
That was a roll call.
Yes.
And I heard everybody say yes. There's nothing else to do, and adjourn the meeting.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did we want to get an update on the, because we were talking about earlier about the new Fayette person?
Oh, I tell you that we hired a Fayette person.
Yeah,
a
I
Fayette
just-
/ health person who will start second semester. She is a recent graduate just this semester from UW Stevens Point, and she is certified in both Fayette and health.
Okay. Is she going to help out with the coaching at all?
She is eligible to be a coach, or she is interested in coaching, not basketball, but other sports.
We're looking at JV softball for this spring.
She played softball in college
Yes,
and high school, at Kimberly, I believe.
played for Kimberly.
So it will help us in the area of coaching. Okay.
And, okay, while we're talking about, are we gonna, and they happen to be for some reason here, I know, it doesn't matter, there were 3 aides that all kind of were resigned at this support. Are we replacing all of those folks?
We will be replacing
Will
them.
be,
Yes.
I mean, this is, though we're not replacing, it just happened that they resigned for whatever it was. Okay,
Right.
just wondering. Okay.
And they're all legitimate resignations.
Yeah, they
They're
are, I
resigning
just was,
for
I
good
know, I read
reasons.
them. They're all legit, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we're gonna replace it. Yeah, okay, good. Good questions.
In fact, Mark, aren't they already on the agenda, the replacements? Do they match up or not?
I don't think so, they just have the ones that resigned, resignations, and the hires were 1 aide for, all middle school, whoops, and the other Fayette, that was all.
The middle school aide is to replace one of those on the retiree list?
Okay.
and aided.
Okay, just one, okay.
And the other 2 have been filled already, but, or not?
We are in the process of hiring somebody for Angie Strassi and for Christine Quaintance. And we have candidates that are,
But we have people in those positions in the meantime.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have good replacements that we're going to recommend.
Good. Adjourn.
I adjourned it already. You kept talking.